I wrote a novel! I should practice these things beforehand. I was supposed to swing around, but that's alright. Follow me on my journey. Welcome to Chapter 5 of A Writer's Journey. And last week, I was talking about point of view and the problems I was having with point of view. I wanted to illustrate today an example of what happened to me or what I had to deal with. Point of view can be real easy in certain circumstances. You've got one character in a scene, and all of a sudden there's things that character can't see that the scene is talking about. It can be real obvious. And so as soon as I was put in, notified by my various editors that I was having some difficulty with this, I was able to go through and say, look, in this scene, Lazarus is talking, and we're supposed to see everything through his eyes, but all of a sudden stuff behind him is being mentioned, as an example. That unless I had him turn his head, he wouldn't know. So I cleaned up most of that kind of stuff. But then there were subtle things that I wasn't aware of, that I didn't know violated point of view, or at least became questionable from the point of view standpoint. And I'll illustrate with an example from the book that I wrote. When I initially wrote it, the first chapter involves a woman walking into the Dubai Mall. She's a suicide bomber, so we take her through that process. And so it began this way, and I'll show it to you on the screen here. Even though she had lived in Dubai for the last 6 years today, Barak Akar walked into the Dubai Mall for the first and last time. She was petite, with long black hair, light Indian complexion, and large dark brown determined eyes. So, what's wrong with that? Where does it violate point of view? And it's kind of a subtle thing, because when I wrote this, I thought, oh yeah, I mean, I'm giving her description. And that instantly is the problem, her description. I'm giving her description. And my editor wrote back and said, no, wait a minute. She's not likely to be walking in thinking, I'm petite, I've got long black hair, oh, I've got a light Indian complexion, oh, my eyes are dark brown. I mean, you don't go around walking, thinking those kinds of things about yourself. So I had to take that, what I thought was a perfectly good description, cut it out, and try to get some of that information in a more realistic way that didn't violate point of view. So here's what I wrote. Though she'd moved to Dubai from India 6 years ago, today Barak Akar walked into the Dubai Mall for the first and last time. The mall was enormous, filled with exotic shops and the clamor of people everywhere. She soaked in the wonder of the place through determined eyes. She wore what appeared to be thick clothing underneath her traditional black burqa. It was far too big for her petite frame. Her long black hair hung loose under the oversized hood. Now, you might ask what's different about that. What's different here is, for example, when I get the determined eyes thing, she might very well be thinking, gee, this is all a wonder, but boy, is it going to be different soon. As far as the petite frame and the long black hair, it's highly likely, because she was overdressed and carrying this big weight, that she might think, I'm just too small for this. And my hair is all loose underneath here. It's uncomfortable. So these are kinds of things that might possibly go through her mind. And so I can kind of mention them as if they did and not violate point of view. But you can see the subtle differences here, because it doesn't look like there's a lot between the two. And then I ran into a little problem. I ended up with more words, and we'll talk about that at a later time. The number of words became very crucial. I'll tell you this, when I finished it the first time, it was 130,000 plus words. Way too much. And the editors called me on that, or my final editor, and we'll get into that. And I had to find a way to get it down to under 100,000, so I had to cut out almost a book. But we'll talk about that. That's another issue. We'll talk about that later. But this didn't help by having to do this. But once I got the hang of it, things turned out okay. So we'll end it here today. Sort of another look at point of view. Be sure to like if you like this. Subscribe if you haven't. And comment. Do you have point of view problems? Or other kinds of problems related to point of view? Or whatever. Let me know. If you got something you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments section. So right now that's it. So have fun writing. Bye.